Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News on the South Florida Conservative News, and it is Thursday, June 5th. And as one has seen, the United States government is having a hard time remembering who's in charge of what, and this goes all the way up to the president's office, as in who's in charge of what, because at this point, it would seem that Donald Trump has lost control, not that he actually had it, of any number of parts of the United States government. In Kyiv, Lindsey Graham, for Pride Month, I'm assuming, has shown up along with Senator Blumenthal and a surprise guest, Mike Pompeo, semi-disgraced politician who has had his security privileges removed, but yet he is still there, right? And they are speaking with President Zelensky. Uh, Graham is pretty much openly saying he's in touch with the president, but he is not there on behalf of the president. That would be done by Marco Rubio's office. In fact, there's a law that stops you from going out as a elected official and trying your own form of governmental whatever. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So here we are. Okay, it started in May, but Graham's just really started to make his more insane comments recently. It was picked up by Democrat run newspapers, and they ran with it because in that point they actually like it, knowing that Graham is really truly part of the swamp. So we have Lindsey Graham, Richard Blumenthal, who's a Democrat, and former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. None of them have been sent by the president. None of them have been briefed by the State Department. And none of them are authorized to be there by the commander in chief, which is Donald J. Trump. And yet they stood shoulder to shoulder with President Zelensky and declared that the U.S. would escalate, that Russia, China, and even India would be punished, that Ukraine's drone strikes were heroic. First of all, I think is how did India get on that page, right? Or China? But yet they're all on the page together. So let that sink in. You heard who they're not sent by the president. They were not briefed by the State Department. They're not representing the United States people. And yet they are telling you that they are going to escalate after the drone attack. Ukraine attacks the Russians. And now the U.S. would escalate if the Russians hit back. So this isn't diplomacy. It's kind of an ambush. And it's an ambush on Donald Trump's foreign policy, with all the laughter and joy that comes from the European Union as well, because they are all sort of on the same page together. Now, the Constitution, I know nobody believes in it anymore, but the Constitution is pretty clear. It says only the president speaks for the United States in foreign policy. That's Article 2, Section 2, for all you people out there that want to know. These senators do not have that authority. Pompeo doesn't have any authority. He's a private citizen with no security clearance. But in Kyiv, they acted as if they ran U.S. foreign policy, and Ukraine treated them like they did. Okay. So, shades of the Biden administration, right? This isn't just arrogance. This is what we call a constitutional crisis in the making. You have to take my word for it. Look up a thing called the Logan Act. It's a federal law from 1799, and it makes illegal unauthorized citizens to negotiate with foreign governments. And now you have to say to yourself, did Lindsey Graham coordinate sanctions with Zelensky? Did they hint at American approval for more drone strikes? Were promises made in private, then signaled in public? If you recall, after these drone strikes hit, Zelensky says, I cleared it with the United States. No answer from Trump, right? Because he probably did not clear it with Donald Trump. He probably went to these senators that he's dealing with and said, we're going to hit them. And he said, hit them. Trump, in the meantime, is back fighting over his budget, and he needs these shitbag senators to vote with him to get the budget through. So is it extortion? Probably, right? At the least, it's extortion. So if the answer to those three questions about Graham coordinating sanctions, hinting that the Americans approved this and the promises were made in private and signaled in public, if you think the answer is yes, That's not politics. That is called sedition by foreign policy. Okay, so the core issue here is Trump is trying to de-escalate, to end the war, to bring Ukraine to the table, to keep Russia from spiraling into chaos and dragging us with it. What happens when Ukraine is told, ignore Trump, these guys have your back, sanctions are coming, just keep hitting targets, which we know the EU has been doing, especially through President Macron of France and whoever the hell is really running Germany. Okay. They've been saying that already. Now you have Graham and you have Blumenthal. So there's your combined Republican Democratic swamp saying, we will outlast this guy, Trump, and you will be dealing with us sooner or later. So they're speaking for the shadow government that is operating in the United States. And yes, we do have one. You all know it. Let's not joke about stuff anymore. Guy today was saying something about, oh, Trump's not doing this and Trump's not doing that. I said, Trump is barely holding on to the office. The leaks that are coming out of the White House, the leaks that are coming out of the Justice Department, the leaks that are coming out of Department of Defense and Department of State prove to you that nobody in there is afraid of the Trump administration, or they would not leak as badly as they do. Leaking is not legal. You shouldn't be doing it, okay? So anyway, the whole thing about ignoring Trump, that's exactly what this trio has been telling them. I can guarantee it. I will state my whatever reputation on it. And we all know how Lindsay gets, right? So what you have to say to yourself at this point is it's no longer just about options. And Trump has to really start to toughen up. You got Graham, you got Blumenthal, and you got Pompeo are waging a private war of their own with tariffs, threats, and praise for military strikes. If you go online and look at the thing that Lindsey Graham says, we're going to raise tariffs to 500% on anybody who doesn't back the Ukraine. That has never been said by the Trump administration. The Trump administration already did their game with tariffs, got what they needed done, and were stopped by all those Democrat judges. How can Lindsey Graham say that he's going to get it done? Because he's going to okay it, because he is going to take the position of the president, right? A job he could never win on a good day. All right. So you have to say, look at this. Imagine if the optics was reversed. Let's say a Democratic senator had flown to Iraq during Trump's first time and promised to reverse sanctions undercutting Trump's military policy. The media would have lost their minds. Right? DOJ investigations would have started before the plane landed, and now you've got silence. You've seen it already before where they have tried to get into El Salvador to reverse policy and say, we're going to cut new policy with a third party government. It's unheard of. It's being done all around the area. I don't know why the Trump administration is allowing it. If they're playing some kind of rope-a-dope game, who knows? But, I couldn't tell you. But the reason that you have the silence is because Graham is part of the old boy elite. Pompeo wants a 2028 bid, supposedly. He's already raising money quietly. And Blumenthal is doing what the interventionist left always does, which is to push the war, fund the NGOs, and destabilize peace. Together, you've got the three no evil monkeys of foreign policy. See no consequences, hear no warnings, and speak no truth. Okay? We have one foreign policy. It is supposed to be led by the President of the United States, not the Senate, not the warmonger lobby, and not goes to the deep state like Mike Pompeo. Okay, so if this shadow diplomacy continues unchecked, we could be drugged into a war we didn't vote for, didn't approve, and don't need. So President Trump has to act. He has to issue a formal rebuke. He has to launch a DOJ inquiry. He has to call for ethics investigations into Graham and Blumenthal. He has to kick Mike Pompeo's ass and perhaps limit his travel outside of the country because now he is acting just like the terrorists we don't allow to be in our country. There are things you can do to limit his travel, and maybe they should look at doing that. So you have to make it very clear to these foreign governments that only the White House speaks for America. And that's how you protect peace. And that's how you restore order. And it is appalling to me that the quote unquote Republican Party is so quick, not that they're not half garbage anyway, they are so quick to usurp the power of the president of the United States for their own selfish gains, which basically in this is warmongering, is probably to kill American soldiers for no apparent reason. Do you want American soldiers who are not familiar with this area, who have nothing, we get nothing out of this war, who have nothing to do with this, are not trained at this point? We're used to fighting a desert war and counterinsurgency. We're going to stick them into World War I trench warfare that has been grinding up the people of Ukraine and Russia. Why would you do that to our people? How fucking sick are you? Right? And they're going to throw out the story about the mineral deal with the mining. That was done for the obvious reason, which was to show that we're invested in the area. Do not keep bombing them. That's sort of gone to the side, if you notice. That's never really been finalized, people. So don't, if anyone says it has, it is not. Okay? Because they were going to do the same thing with the Russians on the other side, because the field of minerals runs across the border into that part of Russia. And they were going to try to run the same thing over there. So it'd be one or two companies working both sides of the fence, mutually assured protection of the area because the Americans would have investment on both sides of it. And we aren't going to be able to see that anytime soon. So you got to stay sharp. You have to say to yourself, you know, diplomacy is not a group project. This is the president's call. He made the right call. Lindsey Graham needs to stay at home more, hang out by the pool or whatever he's doing. And that's where it stands. So don't let anybody tell you any different. You're not allowed to go and do what he's doing. Any country. You can't go to any country and do this. So that's all we have for now. And we'll talk to you later on. Bye.